Next up, from Dubai, we have Digest Technology. Presenting for Digest Technology's founder and CEO, Kitis Patavita. Come on out.
A decrease of 50%. No, I'm not talking about my stock portfolio. I'm talking about something much, much worse. Our attention spans. My generation has half the attention span that the generation before me did. I noticed this extremely prevalent in school when I had 600-page textbooks to learn, and I spent 2 hours a day creating my own summaries, my own flashcards, and every now and again pleading and begging my friends for help. How do you convince a generation that spends 8 hours a day on Snapchat and TikTok to spend 2 hours a day on a textbook, especially when the competition for attention today is so fierce? Meaning that a book that looks like this to you feels like this to me. So I thought to myself, what if we could make learning personalized? What if we could make learning addictive? Ladies and gentlemen, for the first time ever, I'd like to publicly launch DigestAI. We're building generative AI to help students learn faster and help teachers teach faster. Move to demo, please. Our initial product, Kado, allows students to create flashcards with just a picture of their textbooks. All you have to do is point it at the text you want to scan, and we use OCR to grab the words out of the textbook. In the background, our machine learning model creates questions and answers by knowing what's most important for you and what's not. As you can see, it's being resized. The OCR picks up the text. We categorize to whatever you'd like it to categorize on. And in a matter of mere seconds, you get flashcards. This was a process that took me 2 hours in school, now being done by our users in less than 30 seconds. Back to presentation, please. Kado today has over 70,000 beta users and over 650,000 resources generated. Despite the overwhelmingly positive response we got when we launched, we realized something. Our retention wasn't where we wanted it to be. So we went back to the drawing board and went to what students do most. What do students spend 8 hours a day on? Snapchat and TikTok and other messaging apps. Back to demo, please. So for the first time ever again, I'd like to introduce Milo. Milo is a virtual learning assistant that acts as a tutor in your pocket. Not only do you get the basic fundamentals that Kado had, where you get questions and answers instantly generated, except this time, all you need to do is send a word rather than copy-paste the text itself. As you can see, we'll get question and answers generated on the blockchain in mere seconds. Not just that, we've extended our use cases to more than just flashcards. Students can now get help with an essay, for example. So in a matter of mere seconds, once again, we'll get talking points on an essay about inflation. This was again a process that took me hours and hours when I was still in school. Back to presentation, please. Now this is all made possible because we specialize in language. We use semantic understanding to silo language models and process information in a way that very few models do today. This is done, instead of usual prompt engineering, this is done by training task-specific behavior in the model itself. We're able to do this with the data that we collected from Kado itself, and now expanding it across use cases by recruiting ambassadors. Our models run faster than any other model for the specific use case that we've developed it for. In fact, our Q&A generation algorithm takes 200 milliseconds to create questions and answers, whereas the next industry benchmark is 1,200 milliseconds. But what does this mean? Oh, could you go back, please? Well, it means we have a fantastic, seamless user experience. But who are we to judge what a fantastic, seamless user experience is? Well, we are our own user. me and my co-founders are 19 years old and dropped out of university to focus on what's important, building an information pipeline that not just we could use, but our peers could use. We also recently hired Shansa Kabwe, an AI researcher who previously developed the mathematical model for the AI model for mathematical reasoning at the University of South Africa, and he exploded us to an entire new dimension. We now use our AI models beyond just students, and we're able to service workplace and training. Oh, go back, please. We now have 3 paid pilots, 2 with universities in the US and Italy, where we're using our algorithms and our models to distill their knowledge repositories. We're also working with one of the largest companies in Europe to use our algorithms to create instant training resources for their employees. In fact, your employees deserve the same thing. If you're interested in building out a seamless learning experience for all of your workforce and upskilling them as fast as possible, please scan the QR code or go to our website at digest.ai and sign up. Thank you.
All right, give them a round of applause. I make so many flashcards for my teenagers. I'm so excited about this. Okay, who's first? Anne?
That was great. Thank you. I love the idea of addictive learning. I think that's really interesting. How do you think about creating a network effect from the knowledge base and the screenshots that users are contributing to the product? Is there a network effect? And if so, how does it work?
Yes, certainly there is a network effect. In fact, if I ask Milo for talking points in an essay again, my talking points would actually become better. What we're doing now is incorporating a positive feedback loop. That way we know what data is good and what data is bad, because the winner in generative AI is going to be the one with the best feedback loop. We're able to do this seamlessly because of the chat interface, where it feels like you're almost talking to the AI. So yes, that is something we think about, yeah.
And is the knowledge base user-generated or AI-generated or both?
So initially, it's user-generated. We fine-tune the models on real user-based data, as well as textbooks and other educational materials out there. But then eventually, we're also planning on using the AI once the AI is trained to a sufficient amount of extent, we're planning on using it to create our data pipeline as well. Thank you.
Nisha?
Thanks for the presentation. Love this arena. One of the hardest things we've observed in this space is that the promise of the idea is sometimes ahead of the execution of the idea. So you have 70,000 beta users. Can you share a little bit about some of your hero stats? Like, what has your churn been since you launched? Or maybe something like the number of flashcards per person, or daily actives or weekly actives. Tell us more about the traction.
Yeah, so with Kado, we did get traction. Like I said, we have over 70,000 beta users, but Kado wasn't the best product we put out. What we noticed with retention and churn was it wasn't good. That's why with Milo, we've sort of addressed those concerns. The average user spent 7 minutes on Kado, and now they spend 45 minutes on Milo. So that's the sort of improvement we're seeing by moving from a graphical user interface to a chat interface and making students feel like they're almost talking to a tutor. I mean, that's our vision, is putting a tutor in everybody's pocket.
Thanks.
Dave?
I have 5 teenagers that I manage in my household, and you are correct. It is a short attention span. Can you talk just a little bit about the competitive landscape? Are people upgrading from an existing service, or just tell me a little bit about players within the space?
Right. So with education technology, and mostly with high school and universities, it's deeply fragmented. So students are using 6 to 12 platforms to get everything they need in the school year. Our goal with Milo is to make sure it's only one platform. So yes, with Kado, for example, students were switching over from platforms like Anki and Quizlet because the features that we had were paid in those platforms. In fact, they don't even have AI-generated flashcards to date, and we've been able to ship that in a matter of weeks. With Milo, our goal is to sort of consolidate every single use case that's relevant for a student and put it in one interface and let that be their lifelong learning co-pilot almost.
Thank you.
Hello?
What's the distribution strategy look like?
Yeah, so the distribution is purely organic. Like I said, we're students ourselves. So with Kado, we initially started by just giving it to our friends, and then they give it to their friends. Eventually, we started using TikTok, which ended up being a really good distribution channel for us, as well as ambassadors and campuses themselves. One of our ambassadors that was at Bocconi University, Gianluca and Tom, I'm just giving them a quick shout out. They went to their university, and we ended up selling our technology. We ended up working with them to use our technology to create resources for all of their first-year students within economics and management. So we're sort of seeing the student-centric growth cycle being being developed where students are going to their schools and we're selling to the schools directly.
So a little bit of a bottom up, and then the people say, hey, this looks pretty good. We
Yeah.
should get a
Exactly.
license across. How is the management of, like, one of the things that I've observed with ed tech, I don't think this is a blanket statement across the board when it comes to the customer, but it just feels like there are, like, I'm making up the numbers, 100 people that can say no and only one person that can say yes. Is that accurate, or give me some of your thoughts on the dynamics of the education industry?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely would say it's almost accurate. I mean, I think education, and especially working with universities, is a little bit messy. But we've had success in doing it because we go to the professors directly. We're not looking at decision makers in the back office. We're looking at professors who have the burning need for it. They don't want to sit down and create resources for their students, but they want their students to do better. Our technology makes that possible with no extra effort on their end. So for us, we've seen a pretty high. I mean, we've only approached a small number of professors and universities, but we've seen a pretty high conversion rate where most universities do want to work with us, and that cycle has been pretty short.
Awesome. Thank you.
Mandela?
Yeah, I'm in the ed tech space. I have so many questions, but the question I want to focus on first is the content. Is there any content that is not ideal for what you're building?
Yes, mathematical content. So because we're an NLP company, we don't do too well with numbers and math. But what we've also found when we did our user interviews and as students ourselves, we found that math was a subject area that was pretty well addressed by existing platforms. Photomath does a great job. There's other platforms that do similar tasks to Photomath. I think math is something that we do want to focus on later down in the roadmap. For now, our focus is on humanities-based subjects, subjects where language and text is pretty content heavy. So history, geography, economics, these are all subjects that students either study as electives or they study compulsory during high school and beyond, and we're targeting those. And that helps us in focusing on the workplace as well later on.
Quick follow-up. Lo alluded to the challenges of ed tech. You all are 19 years old. Congratulations. Why are you investing your time and talents here, of all the things you could be doing?
I had the idea first when I was 14 years old. So this is something I've thought about since I was like a little boy. When I was 14, I had the idea. I made a pitch deck when I was doing a nano degree at the time. And every year since then, I've pretty much thought about what Digest could be. And I called it the same thing. It was called Digest even back then. I only got to working on it when COVID hit and I was at home all alone. And that's when I whipped up the first MVP and I gave it to my friends. And I saw that the problem that I was facing wasn't one that was just for me. It was all my friends were facing the same problem. So this is a problem that I'm deeply passionate about because I've seen how it affects myself. But not just that, it affects the people around me as well. We're building a product that we're proud to recommend to our peers and that we're proud to use ourselves.
That's great. Thank you so much. Give them a round of applause.